Our next speaker for the day is going to be Dr. Kenneth Y.T. Lim. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Kenneth is a research scientist at the National Institution of Education, Singapore. He and his team work closely with teachers, school leaders and policymakers to help them design learning environments which foreground and surfacing of learner institution from different perspectives. Let's go ahead and welcome Dr. Kenneth on board.
Hello, colleagues. Thank you for joining us today. Today, I am sharing work done by some of my students and my team. And the work centers around the intersection of environment data, physiological data, and electroencephalogram data with respect to student well-being. So we have entitled the project the Life to Well project. And I'll only be sharing a little bit of the background context as well as a brief description of the methodology. If any of you wish to follow up with more deep dives into the data analysis, just let me know. So without further ado, so basically my team over the past 20 years or so has been building a trajectory in studying intuition. As you can see from this screenshot of the web pages of several universities, we are by no means the only team in a university studying intuition, but where we differ from the universities listed here is that instead of studying the intuition of experts, of say CEOs, we are interested in the intuition of novices. So my work stems from this trajectory. My academic affiliation is at the National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. So from this broad picture, if we were to look at, say, this picture, to many teachers and to many educators, if we were to be facing a class of students such as this, we probably would be very happy because everybody is very studious, very keen to respond, and they seem to be understanding what they're learning. However, I'd like to briefly encourage us to think a little bit more critically when faced with learners such as these, because one possible trajectory of their educational growth might be into something like this, which is taken from the Chinese social media feed Weibo, where if everybody knows the correct answer, then very likely something is wrong with the assessment. So sticking with that theme of what does it really mean to know the correct answer, I assume that one of the reasons why you are participating in this particular conference today and over these 2 days is that you are interested in understanding how education is seen through the lenses of Singapore policymakers, as in the Asia Pacific, we are doing fairly well in education. Not too long ago, a few years back, for the primary school leaving examinations, the Ministry of Education posed a question to the candidates and the question was, what is the weight of 7 coins? Now, when this question came out, many of the parents were very unhappy with the Ministry of Education for posing it, because no matter how many hours and money they would have spent on tuition for their children, there would be no way for the children to derive mathematically the answer to what is the weight of 7 coins. It's either something they have a sense of or they do not have a sense of. Meaning, somebody in the Ministry of Education was enlightened enough to ask the question, what does it mean for Singapore to top the world rankings in education just because we're number 1? does it really mean that our students really understand what they're studying? So on this theme of intuition, sensing, um, I'll just now show a few pictures of the work that my team and I do with local schools in Singapore and beyond. Um, so here, for example, are some students in grade 9, who basically are trying to have a sense of the radiative heat emanating from different textures, different surfaces in the school at different times of day. And what we do is we work with the teachers in these schools and the students to use what is known as the Internet of Things, open source hardware, microcontrollers, sensors, to empiricize the sensing of to help the students empiricize the um, what they are sensing from their bodies in a day-to-day environment. So the following this map is not from Singapore, but some of you may recognize it from West Java, from Bandung. So we've together schools in Singapore. We've also worked with schools in the region, in Taiwan and Java, and so on and so forth. And if any of you wish to have collaborations, we welcome it. Now, this particular table is deliberately difficult to read. Please do not try to make sense of it. I'm showing this simply because it's an example. It's a negative example, as an example of how not to represent data. Because back to the original slide of us being interested in the intuition of novices, a novice mathematician or novice geographer would not be able to make sense of data like this. So what about re-representing the data into something like this? Well, if we were to compare these two, obviously this one represents some improvement over the preceding representation, because here what we're doing is we are representing the data with an added spatial element. However, I would argue that even this representation has problems, not least because for the longest time, the geographical spread of the environmental sensors has been limited because of the cost. So, for example, if we were to take this recent article from the local newspaper, and it goes on to say that if you were to look halfway down the slide, it says the closest wind sensor was located about 3 kilometers away, and it did not record the wind gust simply because it was too far away. So although we are representing data spatially here, as opposed to this bland original representation, the spatial representation of data is itself limited by the distribution of sensors on the ground, so to speak. And the distribution of sensors on the ground is consequently a factor of the cost of